provide you with the lowest per GB rates, night or day. SLT 4G, driving you ever forward.
Making headlines on First at 9. Calm after the storm. Parliament adjourned under 10 minutes as the House met for the fourth time following prorogation.
Deputy Speaker adjourn the House till 29th.
On the 29th, we will again show that we have the numbers.
What they thought. The governing party and the opposition air their views on the rumbling political saga.
There is no major obstacle in any form.
Told we are willing to assist them in suspending standing order, but they did not take that offer.
Another petition. Retired Rear Admiral Sarath Weerasekara challenges the reconvening of Parliament in a backdrop of a pending Supreme Court decision. Lack of communication. President Maithripala Sirisena calls a probe over tear gas and water cannon attacks on protesting members of the Buddhist clergy.
බයික් එකක් ගත්තොත් ෆෝන් එකක්. ඔව් තෝරාගත් යමහා බයික් මාදිලි සඳහා රුපියල් 40000ක් දක්වා වටිනා ස්මාර්ට් ෆෝන් එකක් නොමිලේ. ඉක්මන් කරන්න නොවැම්බර් 30 දක්වා පමණයි. කොන්දේසි සහිතයි. අමතන්න 0117 AMW ඉතින් පමණයි.
A very good evening and welcome to First at 9 on Derana 24/7 Sri Lanka's news channel. I am Katharina Chang. Now on to our top story tonight. The Sri Lankan Parliament and the conduct of its members have been in the headlines in the past week, especially the last two occasions the House convened, ending up in utter chaos. The Parliament was scheduled to convene today and it did, with much scepticism hanging overhead. Today's session was chaired by Deputy Speaker Anandakumara Siri, and in complete contrast to what was seen inside the House last week. It was limited only to 6 minutes, following which the session was adjourned until the 23rd without drama. In the meantime, a motion has been handed over seeking the suspension of monetary allocations for the Prime Minister.
Prior to the parliamentary session, parliamentarians of the ruling party convened a meeting under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa this afternoon. In the meantime, parliamentary group of the United National Party also convened under the auspices of former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Following these meetings, a party leaders' meeting was held under Karu Jayasuriya to finalise the agenda for today's parliamentary session. Later issuing a media communique, the media unit of the Speaker said that a report is called on bringing weapons inside Parliament, misuse of Speaker's chair and chili powder attacks. The communique also says that intelligence reports warn of a plan to sabotage today's parliamentary session and that measures were taken to ensure security inside the Parliament. In the meantime, the Speaker's office announced that several members of the UNP handed over a proposal stating that the Secretary to the Prime Minister doesn't have the authority to approve any expenditure drawn from the country's funds, and the relevant motion will be taken up for debate on the 29th. Afterwards, the Parliament convened at around 1 in the afternoon and it was chaired by Deputy Speaker Anandakumara Siri. Today's parliamentary session was, however, limited only to 6 minutes and it was adjourned until 23rd of this month. A selection committee was decided to be appointed to determine on the composition of the Parliament and other committees that should be designed with the commencement of the new term in Parliament.
Public property was destroyed during the parliamentary sessions held on the 14th, 15th and the 16th. I request measures be taken against those who destroyed them according to the law of the country. I will inform the Speaker of the matter.
Mahinda Rajapaksa Agramathetuma saha aanduwa Mahinda Rajapaksa
When a select committee is appointed acknowledging the Prime Minister and the government, the majority of its composition should be given to us. A select committee can't be appointed if there is no government. Therefore, let's acknowledge that there is a government and appoint a select committee. If the select committee related to parliamentary procedure is not appointed, it's not fair to establish the majority in the committee unless they prove the majority in Parliament. Members of the select committee should be appointed according to the composition in Parliament.
In the meantime, expressing views about today's parliamentary session, President Maithripala Sirisena, taking to Twitter, thanked all party leaders and parliamentarians for adopting a peaceful and consensual course of action. The parliamentarians representing both the governing party as well as the opposition were seen engaging in friendly conversations.
After the parliamentary session was adjourned, politicians expressed their views to media on their way out. The parliamentary majority and the composition of parliamentary select committees were the topics touched on today instead of the blame game over recent chaos.
When
the parliament is prorogued, a select committee is required to be appointed in order to carry out parliamentary proceedings. Our stand is that we should receive the majority of the committees since we have 122 members in parliament. They want to keep postponing this. They think that they can hold on to these positions by force, and let's see whether they can. They are trying to buy time until the 7th. Irrespective of the court's decision, if they try to remain in power by force, we will defeat them in the coming budget. The majority has not been shown yet, and it is a fault. The Speaker did not show the majority either. We cannot make assumptions as to who holds the majority without showing it.
The Parliament will sit again on Friday, but on the 29th, we will most probably have another show of strength and show that we have our two-thirds. This is what the party leaders had agreed upon. So on the 29th, we will again, for the 4th time, show that we have the numbers. On the 29th, the President will definitely have to accept that and then appoint Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as Prime Minister. We will definitely be victorious and prove that we are the legitimate government of Sri Lanka.
The leadership of Deputy Speaker, today we started our business. According to the agenda, no special business today. Then the Leader of the House, Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena, makes some submission and one MP also makes submission. And after that, Deputy Speaker adjourn the House till 23rd, Friday.
President Maithripala Sirisena laments the lack of noble characteristics in politicians. Addressing the President's Award for Scientific Publication held in Colombo last evening, the head of state highlighted grace, patience, humanity, morality and discipline as traits essential for a politician. President's Award for Scientific Publication was held under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena last evening. The award ceremony felicitated Sri Lankan scientists affiliated with a Sri Lankan institution whose work have been recognized in the international sphere. The award ceremony was organized by the National Research Council, aimed to provide an incentive to increase national scientific productivity.
I believe scientists play an integral role in our country's development. Therefore, I have informed the Treasury to increase the annual funding for the field of science, technology and research. The difference between scientists and politicians is vast, and we witnessed this during this period. We see that a scientist's grace, intelligence, morality, discipline and humanity are reflections of one's character. Although people who engage in politics are called politicians, I believe academics, think tanks and citizens of this country are aware who true politicians are. A person's grace, patience, humanity, morality and discipline are very important. I believe politicians who do not have these characteristics can't be called politicians.
UMP MP Sajid Premadasa calls on all politicians to forget personal inclinations and put the country's interest first. MP Premadasa made the plea while addressing a media briefing at the parliamentary complex today, where parliamentarians Rauf Hakim and M.A. Sumandaran also accused the ruling party, alleging that members of the government are deliberately attempting to abstain from voting on the no-confidence motion against the Premier.
So this is a very unfortunate situation. They are continuously, deliberately preventing vote being taken in the House, which will ultimately expose their inability to prove their majority in the House. So with that in mind, we have also planned to take a variety of other measures outside Parliament, which we will resort to in the coming days.
A clear offer was made today at the party leaders' meeting to take a vote by name, just to confirm the passage of the no confidence motion that was passed last week in Parliament. Since His Excellency the President, in discussion with us yesterday, expressed some concern with regard to the voice vote. Although a voice vote is perfectly legitimate and has been provided for in the standing orders, since that doubt was expressed by His Excellency, just in order to confirm that 122 members in fact vote and to show who those 122 members are, we were willing to conduct a vote by name. We told the permanent government that we are willing to assist them in suspending standing orders today too for that purpose. But they did not take that offer, naturally, because they don't have a majority in the House.
All these undemocratic authoritarian actions are to the detriment to all of us in our country, close upon 22 million people. So the surprising situation is most in politics talk of becoming the voice of the people, the voice of the voiceless. Now one wonders who these politicians are representing. So most days they must be going in front of a mirror, looking at themselves, looking at one's personal health, destiny, expectations, declarations. I think surely the time has come to forget about personal inclinations and personal interests. It's time that everybody put the country's interests to the forefront. That should be the priority issue.
We are confident that we will win the next election and Sajid Premadasa will be elected. England, Australia, Europe and several other countries have threatened to close Sri Lankan embassies.
Leader of the House Dinesh Gunawardene is confident over the future of the government as he does not see any major obstacle in any form and therefore will go on to govern the country. Speaking at a media briefing following the adjournment of the Parliament today, the Minister expressed the governing party's intention to forge ahead unhindered.
After the party leaders meeting with Speaker Karunaratne Jayasuriya, the opposition wanted to move another resolution limiting the powers of the finance minister's expenditure and the resolution to be tabled before Parliament. What are they trying to do? Limit the expenditure and deprive the public servants of their salary, the retired pensioners, which is over 5 lakhs of people in this country, and other essential public expenditure which is to be due by the end of the month. Deputy Speaker came in, took the chair and read a message that the selection committee, according to standing orders, there are no other selection committee. Selection committee is clearly stated in the standing order, will be established and the names were called and the selection committee will appoint the business committee with the leaders of Parliament to run business of Parliament. We informed the Speaker today also that he has no power to appoint or dismiss a Prime Minister. The sole power is vested in the President of the country. Therefore, we are urging the Speaker to abide by the Constitution and the standing orders, recognizing the government to conduct business of the House. And I'm sad to say that the Speaker did not face Parliament today. Speaker is available in his room. He did not have the commandos or the police force to force into Parliament, perhaps, because the members of Parliament stood against the irregular, unlawful and unconstitutional way the Speaker was behaving. He has not been able to come to Parliament and face this. That is very clear. And he sent his Deputy Speaker just to read a note and adjourn Parliament in a matter of 10 minutes. We as government will go on. There is no major obstacle in any form. His Excellency the President has summoned the Cabinet. Cabinet of Ministers will continue with their work and the government will go on in Parliament and business outside Parliament.
මුදල් අමාත්‍ය අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය
A motion is handed over seeking suspension of monetary allocations for the finance minister, who also happens to be the prime minister. Such a motion has been handed over for the first time in Sri Lankan history. Due to not being able to attack the prime minister and the cabinet, they have now chosen the minister of finance to attack. I say this with responsibility that on the 16th, the speaker called a former MP and a working committee member of the UNP and sought their support, saying that he is ready to take oath as prime minister. That's when he developed the backbone to conspire in parliament, because he is not a person of such caliber. His son-in-law and the people around him created the atmosphere to make him the prime minister. That, however, eventually led to the uncertainty of the whole country.
Written objections were submitted to the Supreme Court today against the fundamental rights petitions which were filed challenging the President's decision to dissolve the Parliament. The fundamental rights petitioners say the President's move is illegal and unconstitutional, while the interim petitioners who gave written objections insist that the Parliament was dissolved constitutionally by the head of state. 13 fundamental rights petitions were filed by several factions at the Supreme Court, including the United National Party, the Tamil National Alliance and the Janata Vimukthi Peramuna, challenging the decision taken by the President to dissolve the Parliament. The petitioners deemed that the dissolution of the Parliament was in violation of the Constitution. When the case was taken up today at the Supreme Court, Minister Buddha Sasana and Religious Affairs Udaya Gamampila, Chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna Professor G.L. Peiris, Jagat Vellavatta, Attorney at Law Premanath C. Dolavatta and Professor Channa Jayasumna submitted their written objections against the petitions. The interim petitioners argued that since the President dissolved the Parliament according to the Constitution, the petitions filed by the UMP, TNA and the JVP should be nullified. In the meantime, retired Rear Admiral Sarath Weerasekara filed a petition at the Supreme Court today, seeking a ruling which deems a reconvening of Parliament is in violation of the Constitution, given the fact it was done while the Supreme Court had issued an interim injunction order on the dissolution of Parliament. President Maithripala Sirisena dissolved the Parliament on the 9th and the decision was challenged in the Supreme Court. Speaker of Parliament Karu Jayasuriya is one of 3 respondents named in the petition filed today by Rear Admiral Weerasekara.
The Supreme Court gave a ruling temporarily suspending the President's decision to dissolve the Parliament, and it is not suspended permanently. If it was temporarily suspended, the situation should continue to be. The Parliament was already dissolved when the ruling was given. Therefore, by reconvening the Parliament, the Speaker misinterpreted the ruling. We filed this petition against that.
Police fired tear gas and water cannons on a protest organised by the organisation Singhale Api, worked off adjacent to the Presidential Secretariat today. Now, following the incident, President Maithripala Sirisena called for an investigation into those who sanctioned the use of tear gas and water cannons in view of the protest involving members of the Mahasangha and the fact that the head of state was not informed of the demonstration.
Some members of the Mahasangha representing several organizations including Singhale Api staged a protest in front of the Presidential Secretariat this morning. They were demanding the release of imprisoned General Secretary of Bodubala Sena, Venerable Galagodatti Gnanasara and an end to the suppression of war heroes. Later, they blocked the entrance to the Presidential Secretariat, demanding a discussion with the President. A coordinating secretary from the Presidential Secretariat informed the protesters that they can meet the President for a discussion on a date at the end of December. The protesters, however, were not happy with the response and attempted to enter the premises, at which point police fired water cannons and tear gas to disperse the crowd. Later, the President, however, invited them for a discussion and listened to their plea. The head of state also accepted the letter which requested the release of Venerable Galagodatti Gnanasara. In the meantime, the President's media unit released a statement saying that the head of state is apologetic over the inconvenience caused to members of the Buddhist clergy in front of the Presidential Secretariat today. The statement also said that the President had not been informed of their arrival to deliver a message. The President, however, directed immediate action to conduct an inquiry over today's incident.
We will now cross over to a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. Gold prices were steady today, with the dollar subdued after comments from Federal Reserve officials showing caution over the global economy, prompting traders to reassess the pace of future U.S. interest rate hikes. Spot gold was little change at $1,220.70 per ounce, having gained about 0.7% in the previous session. However, the prospects of higher U.S. interest rates are negative for dollar-priced gold as they raise the opportunity cost of holding the bullion. According to Reuters, the spot gold may end its current bounce below a resistance at $1,231 per ounce and resume its downtrend from $1,243.28. Now, stock markets in Asia subdued during early trade today as investors remained cautious over tensions between the US and China after a Pan-Pacific summit ended without consensus on trade issues. Japan's Nikkei rose 0.3%, Tokyo Electron was up 3%, and Hong Kong stocks cooled after a strong early start as the Hang Seng Index rose by 0.45%. Chinese stocks were little changed, with the Shanghai Composite saw an increase of 0.91%, up fractionally, while smaller cap Shenzhen Composite fell slightly. Sri Lanka stocks ended flat today, with the benchmark index declining a marginal 0.07% amidst a deepening constitutional crisis. The Osha index closed 3.99 points lower at 5,951.44, while the S&P/SL 20 index of more liquid stocks ended gaining 11.3 points to 3,120.80. We now have Amanda Lukugamage from First Capital Holdings with a detailed report.
Market ended in red for the second consecutive day, dragged down by Singer Sri Lanka and Commercial Bank. All share price index witnessed a volatile trend during the day, reaching an intraday high of 5,961 prior to closing the day at 5,948, losing 8 points. Both turnover and volume slightly dipped compared to last Friday, and a net foreign outflow was witnessed with high foreign participation.
The Sri Lankan rupee fell to a record low today as political uncertainty deepened a day after President Maithripala Sirisena called for a third vote on a no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Now, the rupee hit a record low of 177 rupees and 20 cents against the US dollar, compared with Friday's close of 176 rupees and 60 to 80 cents. It has fallen more than 15% so far this year. Let's now take a look at how the rupee performed against other major currencies around the world. Theresa May is set to renew her efforts to sell her draft Brexit withdrawal agreement, saying it will stop EU migrants jumping the queue. She will say migration will become skill-based, with Europeans no longer prioritised over engineers from Sydney or software developers from Delhi. The UK Prime Minister will also insist to business leaders that her withdrawal deal has been agreed in full. It comes as some Tory MPs continue to press for late changes to the deal. Ministers from the remaining 27 EU countries are meeting in Brussels ahead of the deal being finalized on Sunday. They are working on the political declaration setting out their future relationship with the UK. There has been widespread criticism of the draft 585-page withdrawal agreement setting out what the UK and EU's future relationship could look like, which is set to be signed off at a summit this weekend. Two of the Prime Minister's cabinet ministers resigned over the proposed deal, while others are believed to be trying to change its wording. Now, speculations continue of whether the number of Tory MPs submitting letter of no confidence in Theresa May will reach the 48 required to trigger a confidence vote on her leadership. On other international news, hundreds of residents have taken to the streets of a Mexican border town in protest at the arrival of thousands of migrants trying to get to the US. They were urging the migrants to leave Tijuana to the south of California.
The migrants are part of a large caravan of Central Americans who have been traveling through Mexico to the US, where they want to claim asylum. In response to their arrival, the US and Mexico installed heavier security at the border crossing. Tijuana Mayor Juan Manuel Gastelum said on Friday he expected the number of migrants arriving in the city in the coming weeks to reach 10,000, warning the city was not prepared to handle the avalanche. The city's shelters are already struggling to cope and authorities have asked for government assistance. Gastelum's words were seized on by US President Donald Trump on Sunday. Quote, the mayor of Tijuana, Mexico just stated that the city is ill-prepared to handle this many migrants. The backlog could last 6 months, unquote, he tweeted. Quote, likewise, the US is ill-prepared for this invasion and will not stand for it. They are causing crime and big problems in Mexico. Go home, unquote. However, not everyone was protesting against the migrants. A smaller demonstration was also held in support of the new arrivals, who say they are fleeing persecution, poverty and violence in their home countries of Honduras, Guatemala and El Salvador. And there was even understanding from the migrants themselves.
Let's now cross over to a short commercial break.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Alexander Zverev stunned world number 1 Novak Djokovic in straight sets to win the season-ending ATP finals and earn the biggest victory of his career. Djokovic was the favourite to win a 6th finals title but was outclassed 6-4, 6-3 by the German.
Alexander Zverev defeated world number 1 Novak Djokovic 6-4, 6-3 to win the ATP finals yesterday, the biggest title of the German's fledgling career. The 21-year-old broke serve once in the opening set and 3 times in the second to pull off a shock victory in a packed O2 arena, denying Serbian Djokovic a record-equaling 6th title at the ATP's Blue Ribbon event.
2 sets to love, 6-4, 6-3.
Djokovic was a firm favourite, having looked unbeatable all week, not dropping a set or even a service game, but 24 hours after being booed following a semi-final win over Roger Federer, Zverev had the crowd drooling over an audacious display. Zverev is the first German to win the title since Boris Becker in Frankfurt in 1995 and the youngest since Djokovic won at the same age in Shanghai in 2008.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Moving on to your weather forecast for tomorrow. Now temperatures are to vary between 20 and 29 degrees Celsius with a highest of 29 expected in Batticaloa. Now due to the low-level atmospheric disturbance in the vicinity of Sri Lanka, rainy conditions is expected to enhance over the island as showers or thunder showers will occur at times over most parts of the island. Heavy rainfalls of 150 millimeters can be expected at some places, particularly in northern, eastern, central, Sabragamuwa and Uva provinces. Heavy falls of around 100 millimeters may occur elsewhere over the island. Up next is your City by City forecast. And that is all here from First at 9. Thank you for joining us. But before we go, we are taking you to Arismale in Trincomalee. This small coastal village lying around 50 kilometers north of Trincomalee gains notoriety since its beach consists of sand with comparatively large particles. We hope you enjoy these visuals and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.